Peace, everybody. I am Energy Master Allah, aka the Emma, and we are back for part 2 of the introduction to my 19 code lecture series. If you have not seen the first video, I not only suggest that you go back and watch the part 1, I insist, because the nature of this lecture is holographic, which basically means that all the parts contain all the parts, so you got to get all the pieces. And so you don't need to worry necessarily whether you get it all in one sitting, because your brain is doing more things than you realize, and it is collecting the pieces, and you have aspects of your consciousness that piece things together while you're resting. So while you are in a state of relaxation or otherwise asleep, your brain is constantly assembling parts, and the important thing is to make sure that it's got all the pieces so that when it assembles the puzzle in its most stable configuration, and it gives you your eureka aha, like Shaq is doing on the board right there, then you'll be ready for it and it'll make sense to you. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into part 2. This will also be a written introduction style, like the first video. After this one, we will go back to using the whiteboard, and I have some pre-prepared slides already, and I will be working from those, but I will basically be going through those piece by piece live on the whiteboard. But for now, just try to digest this one. There is some math and construction that happens in the latter half of this particular section of the introduction. So if you want to take some kind of notes, you can. But for the most part, it is being introduced in this section as a way to condition you to understand how the rest of the series will go over the next couple of weeks, or however long it takes me to record these. Once again, if you are watching it live on Facebook or whatever, you're getting it raw as I recorded it. And if you're watching this on YouTube, these are pre-recorded, and I am releasing them in a staggered fashion on YouTube, so you can kind of set your watch by it, if you know, in a manner of speaking. But all right, let's get busy. Part 2. Through the eyes of discernment, guided by math and linguistics, we can more effectively understand the rules of the game and become skilled players. More importantly, by integrating knowledge and clarifying the structure of reality, our hearts can return to the state of children, creating freely and collaboratively, but purposefully and compassionately. A good game is often the manifestation of good pacing and good timing, the intersection of which appears as good luck to some. I look back at the timing of things that have unfolded throughout my life and the events that led up to them. It's funny how similarly hip-hop has evolved to whatever type of video games were out at the time. In the 1970s, when it began, all you had was Pong, a simple, fair back and forth. Everyone went home at the end of the day. By the 90s, games had clear rules, a distinct start and end, initially starting out with no continues, but eventually showing a little more grace to make the game more accessible to the less skilled. By the late 2000s, they let some of anybody play. People who used to criticize the players were now flooding the market with the games they wanted to play. Where stories and skilled layered craftsmanship once were king, by the 2010s, the industry was saturated with endless kill, respawn, repeat cycles, fueled by trophies, group chat trolling, and constant corporate injection of busted downloadables that gave those with more disposable income all the advantages. Now, what I just said, take that and replace hip-hop and video games with politics and religion, and you pretty much can conceptualize the exact route human history as a whole has taken. Most of what we think we understand about the ancient world has been filtered through imperialism, colonialism, and capitalism, such that Yahweh starts out as a Canaanite war bull storm god, initially with a very human-like repentant story arc similar to divinities characteristic of Africa and Asia alike. It eventually becomes something a little more commercialized. These qualities are that I just named are completely glossed over by later Greco-Roman intellectuals, and in only a matter of decades, Jesus goes from being a man who accepts his destiny upon being baptized to being this supernatural, unattainable entity. By the time Islam comes along, what started off mostly as an effort to quell conflict between the Jews and Christians by reminding them that they were all children of Abraham, quickly became the instrument of domineering caliphates, completely distancing Allah from anything in the universe. While this ironically brought the theology somewhat closer to its African beginnings, placing the divine masculine as an unmanifest source with quote-unquote angelic agents that exercise his will in the physical world, the role of the feminine and man loses all of their original essence. And right there, I'm distinguishing between the masculine as a designation of the forces versus man as in human, whether you're man or woman. Okay. In many ways, the divinity of man was restored by the intersection of black liberation movements with pan-esoteric syncretism with mainstream religions from the 1900s to the 1960s. Today, the restoration of the feminine and the role of nature still struggle to serve as the checks and balances they were intended for. That said, the more recent uptick of interest in indigenous spirituality and shamanism is not only bringing the divine feminine back to prominence, but also exposing how similar we all were before losing our connection to the quote-unquote grand network. The reintroduction of these indigenous earthling tones into Islam by Black America came along with two important yet seemingly contradictory assertions that I will demonstrate are just the masculine and feminine sides of the same coin. The first is Masta Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam, which is an acronym for I, Self, Lord, and Master. The second is the father's Islam is a natural way of life, not a religion. This only seems contradictory because we've come to view math in the same way religion has come to view God, as something far distant from us so that we don't soil this perfection with our own imperfection. The irony is that the disconnect came in the form of the man-interpreted written law taking precedence over the oral traditions after the oral traditions became decoupled from their most important and sophisticated verification system, the body of the original man. When the 120 lessons say that we took everything from them but the language, it's telling you that while those who diverged during the basal Eurasian split took with them the literal understanding of the stories, we kept the best part for ourselves in the form of the complex distribution of inflections that target the vibrations of the sounds themselves to specific points in the body. We didn't simply memorize. We used sound to map the body, then used story to remember specific sequences that produce physically verifiable and repeatable effects in the human experience. To know the math of the body, which is its geometry, is to know the structure of the universe and the signature of the Creator. This is man's passport into divine participation. And the 19 code is the encrypted passkey required not only to unlock access to the interface, but to deactivate the security system we installed to keep kids who can't even get along playing with blocks from finding their way to playing with nukes. Let's just say Oppenheimer's interest in both the Hindu Vedas and atomic bombs was no more a coincidence than Alan Turing's interest in both machine intelligence that can pass for human and the process by which melanin patterns distribute themselves on the skin of humans and animals. I say that to say, the more advanced our understanding of nature, the more it seems like an illusion of complexity disguising simple, almost computer-like rules that have just been repeated over and over again. Likewise, the more advanced our math and technology become, the more organic and human-like it begins to seem. Chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita, the same chapter from which Oppenheimer borrowed his famous "I am become death, destroyer of worlds" quote, also contains exactly 20 verses beforehand. The quote that inspires the notion held by yogis that the human body contains within it the radiance of hundreds of thousands of suns. While this has largely been treated as poetic, we now know through the sciences of sonoluminescence and atomic fusion that compressing gas or otherwise smashing the atoms together can release temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. Take notice of the 11 and 20 here, whereas the 11th Hebrew letter, Kaf, meaning palms of the hand, also happens to have a value of 20 in Gematria, system of Jewish Kabbalah. In the popular anime series Dragon Ball Z, characters are known to produce ki blast in battle by focusing energy at their palms to unleash a massive beam of illuminated destructive force in the enemy's direction. While these flashy moments usually steal the attention of most hormone-driven teen boys, my cousins and I were martial artists who could see past the extremes to the subtle jewels hidden underneath, particularly when it came to the training arcs. There's one particular scene later in the series where Gohan, the son of the main protagonist Goku, is now in high school and courting his future wife and fellow martial artist Videl. In the scene, he decides to teach her how he and his friends create ki blasts. He instructs her to sit in a meditative posture with her eyes closed, breathe and place her cupped hands in front of her navel, and listen to her center. He tells her that once she finds it, wait for a pulse, then to draw it out into her hands. Sure enough, a tiny ball of light begins to manifest within her hands. Hold on, y'all. I'm tripping. Let me go ahead and put my phone on Do Not Disturb. All right. Back into it. So in the scene, okay, sure enough, a tiny ball of light begins to manifest within her hands. While not nearly as powerful, swift, or elaborate as the range of techniques Gohan and others use in the heat of battle, experiencing this small feat, she had broken the threshold of doubt, dispelling her father's assertions that it was just tricks or hidden bombs. Like the serpent and the Watchers delivering knowledge too soon, America received Dragon Ball Z first, which is itself a sequel to the flagship series Dragon Ball. As a result, our kids were thrown directly into cosmic soap opera drama and blasts that could decimate planets, without first watching the series where young people who'd already been training hard to become super strong on regular human terms still had to go through unearthly extremes to reach the point where one tiny blast per episode could be achieved. The exact line of reasoning that's used there is that which allowed Oppenheimer to transmute Vedic information about the body and its geometry into the vector equilibrium construction that enabled the reaction necessary for his bomb to succeed. This is exactly the type of reasoning my cousins and I use to extract secrets from anime and comics. Once you know the mechanics, it's just a matter of scaling it up. Super expensive computers performing important calculations were once huge enough to fill a room, gradually shrunk down to case size and made affordable to businessmen. Then they got tiny and cheap enough for everyone to have one. Then they got huge and expensive again, mostly so people can watch ridiculousness on the internet. Likewise, the universe gradually folded into cellular life, which then expanded into huge creatures on the earth that eventually shrunk into more compact versions. Considering that black people currently have the highest adult obesity rate, close to 50% in America, I'd say we are in our bulky smartphone with the fancy case stage, with 85% of us using AI to cheat on tests, 10% making corporations rich off of the 85%, and 5% trying to teach the 85% how to be self-aware so the 10% can't feed on them. The human palm is already the most advanced technology in the universe, and the black palm has the clearest resolution. Upon examining my own palm and that of my wife and a much older colleague, I realized that the positions of major palm lines and their relative positions matched the positions of major constellations that were present in those exact positions at the exact time of our births. These markings are called akaraka in Igbo culture and are a snapshot of a person's self-assigned destiny. According to Jewish Midrash tradition, which is older than the idol smashing version. Oh, hold on. Okay, yeah, I edited something out there. But then, okay, so in a previous iteration of this document, I go into the story of going to talking about Abraham and the way by which he came to have his realization. So let's just pick up from there. All right, so okay, well no, we're good. It's here. Okay, so according to the Jewish Midrash tradition, which is older than the idol smashing version Christians and Muslims adopted, Abraham's realization of the one true God came about when he was 3 years old, observing the sun, moon, and stars. Abraham was looking at the sun and thinking it must be God because of his power. When it set, he turned to the moon, then the stars. Seeing that each was replaced by the next, he deduced there must be an invisible master who controls the entire system. Now, this ain't some mystery guy stuff we talking about here. Just stay with me for a second. This is exactly why it's important to look for the oldest versions of stories so that you can witness the consistency across cultures the Western world told us were completely unrelated. That said, it was the combination of this story and the observation of our palms that had me realize that it isn't that the skies shaped our hands or that our hands necessarily shaped the skies in a physical sense. Rather, the same intelligence that is embedded within us is embedded within all things, including the stars in the sky. Just like if I were to place two iron balls on a table, then introduce a powerful magnet to the underside of the table, such that both balls roll along following the magnet. If I'm looking at it on the surface, it may look like they're moving independently on their own and just coincidentally going in the same direction. In the same sense, our palms organize their lines based on a similar electromagnetic principle to that which is informing the organization of forces in space. Because everything, including us, is using the same search engine, quote unquote, we might each be typing a slightly different inquiry into the search bar, but we still are all subjected to the same single process of organizing information and prioritizing results. So just think of search engine, search bars, think of all that in terms of your own seeking in life. Same difference, different technology. Maybe not. This same motif of the sun, moon, and star are central to the teachings of the 5% nation and manifest in virtually every world system that hasn't become significantly distorted. Just as they appear on our universal flag, they are what's symbolized by the items in the Ark of the Covenant. They represent God's presence as a conduit for divine destructive power. With respect to the knowledge of the sun, we are taught in the definition of Allah in the Supreme Alphabet that the power of God's wisdom is revealed through 5 times 72 equaling 360. These three things being stages in a single cipher or cycle of life. This is cleverly encoded in the Judeo-Arabic 27-letter alphabet system defined by Stan Tenon's Meru matrix. The 20 that pointed to our poem earlier points to the 20th letter on the Arabic side, Ra, meaning Lord, and corresponding to Hebrew Resh, meaning head, beginning, origin. This has a gematria value of 200, which is the adding of a cipher to 20. So I'm putting another cipher or 0 behind 20. You can visualize this as a circle being drawn around a central dot, and you would have the exact hieroglyph of the Egyptian sun god Ra. Allah, which corresponds to the Arabic letter Alif and our letter A, is therefore associated with the number 1, confirming that the Tawhid, or oneness, of Allah. Appropriately, the corresponding Hebrew Aleph is said to represent 3 number 1s to represent this concept of a single existence with a trine or triple nature, also representing the 2 hands on either side of the spine. The 10th letter, Yod, or Yod, meaning I, me, or hand, you'll most commonly see it as hand, and the 6th letter, Vav, meaning pin, spine, therefore create the 10-6-10 ratio. So that's the side of the hand, spine in the middle, other side, other hand, 10-6-10 ratio of the arm span, quote unquote, of a pentagram or 5-point star. This confirms the association of the understanding, which is the number 3 in supreme mathematics, also meaning child, with the star as the image of God in the physical. Allah, the original man, unfolds from a single point-like cell into a man with arm, leg, arm, head. That's 5 points. That's a star. 20 add a cipher in gematria is therefore the equivalent of 19 plus 1 in regular math in the ordinality of the alphabet. So ordinality in that order. So the 19th letter, first letter, 19 and 1. Therefore pointing to Kaf, meaning powerful, and of course Alif for Allah. It has a gematria value of 100, which is the adding of a cipher onto 10. So the same way we added a cipher to the end of 20, 100 would be the adding of a cipher onto 10, which we previously established is related to the hand. The hand, or manus, of God is therefore associated with the corresponding Hebrew letter Kof, meaning ape or skull. By adding the knowledge of the sun to the ape skull, you are essentially describing the process of enlightenment and self-awareness that distinguishes man from apes. Just as a little side note, if you pull up a picture on Google of the palm of a chimpanzee and you compare it to the lines on the hand of a human, you'll notice that the orientation of the main lines is rotated 72 degrees. So whereas they're kind of radiating from the bottom of the palm on a chimpanzee, they're coming from the for you they're radiating more or less from the side of your palm that is between your thumb and your forefinger. So there's a 72 degree rotation there that plays into this whole 5 times 72 equals 360. All right, back into it. While technically the 20th of the major arcana cards in tarot, the Fool card being 0 or 22 depending on his stage in the hero's journey, the Sun card is numbered on it as 19, again associating the 19 code with the sun. The card itself features sunflowers turning towards the radiance of the Christ child rather than towards the physical sun. This matches our reading of 19 as knowledge born to knowledge, add a cipher, all being born back to knowledge. and demonstrates the relationship of Kof, the ape skull, or 100, Yod, the I, me, hand, which is 10, and the Aleph, or master, which is 1, for a total of 111. So 111, just like we said was associated with Aleph. Appropriately, the moon and star cards are numbered 18 and 17 respectively, and therefore correspond to the letters Sa, meaning eternal, and Fa, meaning who opens, respectively. If the Ark of the Covenant houses the sun, moon, and star, this suggests access to power eternal for who opens. The etymological tragedy here is that reassembling these pieces gives us the Arabic word kasafa, equally meaning to thunder, roar, like the description of the universe roaring forth from Rudra, the Hindu embodiment of the star Sirius, who is also associated with the number 11, the side note. It can also mean to bomb, like the way Oppenheimer chose to interpret chapter 11 of the Gita. As you can plainly see here, whether it's Adam and Eve being booted from Eden or the devil being made to walk the hot desert to the caves of Europe, if we allow our children to go out into the world with the human capacity for speech and language, but fail to emphasize the importance of proper initiation to mold understanding, instead of finding the source of creation within, they'll discover the maximum capacity for destruction. This is why it is not flesh and blood we wrestle, nor is it nuclear weaponry that needs dismantling, but the incorrect interpretation of the child of God, which you can associate with 37, that's understanding Allah God. So child of God, 37, which when multiplied by understanding, which is 3, illuminates the truth of the threefold nature of Allah acting as one within each of us. So just for the record, 37 times 3, child of God, multiplied by understanding, is 111. Just like that 111 that I just pointed out was associated with this secret code of Kasafa. Okay? So that is just a taste. Gotta go ahead and start getting ready to take my daughter to her ABA therapy. But make sure you, if you need to go back, review this one, watch it back to back with part 1. Even though it's not required reading, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you grab a copy, if you haven't already, of The Leopard in the Mirror, Canticle of the Mutant Guardian by myself. It is on Amazon right now, and it basically gives you some of the foundational codes of what I'm talking about. This is new information that we're touching on here in this lecture, but it is very much in support of what is presented and introduced in the commentary section of the book. So if you don't have that, I'd highly recommend it. But I will see you next time that I get some time to record, which will hopefully be soon. And I will be beginning again with the whiteboard and doing the live style lecture version. And I'm gonna have to do some showing and proving. I know I said some stuff in the introduction here, so don't worry, I'm not gonna leave you hanging by any means. And by the time we get done with all this, you should have the equivalence of a doctorate in performing surgery on reality itself, because we need to pull out the big guns of our divine nature if we are going to redirect the events that are currently happening in a direction that doesn't lead to us having to have a clean wipe and reset and all of that good stuff. We could just have a reboot of the way that we're operating in this matrix of ours, remembering that the word matrix, even though we've come to associate it mainly with a computerized prison, it actually comes from the word meaning womb, like the womb of a woman. And so the low key got you scared of that thing right now. So it ain't that you need to be scared. You just need to understand it. You need to understand how it makes people come out. That's what it really boils down to here. But I will see you next time. Take care of yourself. Be safe. Each one teach one. Peace.